Veron?
Yeah. Veron?
Veron.
Yeah.
Sebastian Veron.
I'm on telly.
Well, mate, how tall are you?
Yeah. I'm elevated.
Small.
I can't even touch the floor here.
Yeah, that's the biggest box. There's a small one out there.
No, there's not mine. I don't know where it is.
I think it's that chair there.
Jack, let me do it. Outtake.
You're alright. Go on. Hey.
Imagine 90
kg.
That goes mid-podcast.
I'm 90 kg, remember?
Big enough.
Right then, welcome back. It has been it's been a while, hasn't it, since we last did.
It's been a month or two.
It probably has been 2 months.
Yeah.
But we've got a few requests from people on the programme. A few people that we've met over the last few weeks said, when's the next podcast coming out? So we decided to get our act together and record the next one. We're actually joined today by our Mr. Media man himself, Carl Moss.
Big up Mossy.
Big up to me. We were actually just chatting about like what we were going to talk about in this podcast before, and then we're going to talk about the journey of a CrossFit athlete. Like, how does someone get into CrossFit and then decide that they want to be competitive with it? And then we asked Carl, and yeah, you give some pretty good insights that I think would be worth talking about, and some similar points to myself, and possibly Jack as well. So yeah, we got asked this on when we do the story takeovers on Instagram last week, and it was how to progress from someone who's just come into a CrossFit gym and doing the CrossFit classes, and then how do you progress on then to get into CrossFit as more of a competitor, and then kind of like what are the stages and what do you need to go through to like make that next step up to be able to get yourself ready to be able to compete in a competition.
So I feel like it's best to start with you, Mossy, and just give an example, because I know a lot of people will probably be able to relate to how you kind of started in CrossFit, really. So you want to give like a bit of the back, like how you got into it and whatnot.
So by no stretch of the imagination am I a CrossFit competitive athlete. Just for everyone.
Did you compete in CrossFit this weekend?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I'm not a thing. So
what do you think, Jay? 140.
Yeah.
Competitive. He's an athlete.
So it's like we had this conversation just earlier. I got into CrossFit by what everyone does, seeing it on social media, innit? Finding it on YouTube. One of my mates at Army showed me on YouTube. Next thing, it was like the Saturday, and I was like, oh, that was it then. And then we were talking about basically what was it when we first?
So you watched it on YouTube. I watched it on YouTube. Start. I don't know.
I watched a YouTube video. It was like a Netflix documentary, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I was watching the live CrossFit games. Yeah. Next thing, obviously, at this time I didn't even train. Do you know what? I think I did train, but
you did your army training.
But it was literally just running army stuff and then like a bit of bodybuilding stuff. But I only started training when I was 25 anyway.
Right.
So this was like late 25. So I thought, right, I'll try this CrossFit sort of stuff. I was under the pretense that then you start going back watching every CrossFit video you can find on you. The trouble is when you do that is you end up in 2008 when CrossFit workouts were like butterfly pull-ups and press-ups and stuff, and people thought, well I did when I was watching them, I thought I was under the perception, not knowing anything about training, that if I do that, I'm going to get massive. And it's like, but that's basically the thing, you see them doing it, you think, that must be how you get massive. Right, 1 minute, I'm going to Morrison's, fruit and veg, paleo diet, let's go, what's that? And then, started doing it on my own at the army, didn't have a clue what I was doing, got some injuries through doing that.
Like the army gym, was that just like
literally just the army gym?
Like a global gym, or what? What's an army gym?
It would have a rig, it had a rig, like a Beaver Fit rig, it had a rope, it had rowing machines, like decent ones, decent things, so it had enough equipment to do CrossFit there. Yeah, so...
Are we talking out in,
No,
I'm
talking in Stoke.
down
the road. No. So I'm talking in Stoke. I just started doing it on my own, but like finding workouts online. Do you know, like going on main site workouts, what's workout of the day? I didn't know what else to do. I didn't even think about there being that massive strength element around it.
And it was savage workout.
It was just workouts after workouts, wall balls and pull-ups, like let's go.
Let's do it.
But like we were talking about the mindset at the start, like I was such a novice in terms of training. If I'd had any training back then, I don't think I would approach it the same way. But I would ended up coming to JST, and then I was in the mindset where this workout is 5 rounds. It's rowing, it's box jumps, it's deadlifts, and it's 15 deadlifts at whatever, 90 or whatever the weight will be. And I was thinking, 15 deadlifts, it's a set of 15.
You do that.
It's unbroken and that's it. That, like, to me, I read that as it's a set of 15 and it's a set of 15 and it's unbroken. It's a set of 15 and that's it. Yeah, that's literally all I thought. I didn't even consider the fact of breaking it up. This is why I ended up with the fear of conditioning, turning up to workout, getting nervous before WODs. I'm pretty sure everyone's been there, like nervous. No matter what, even in the gym, like you've done your back squats, and you're like, oh shit, gotta send it in a minute. From round 1, 20-minute AMRAP, gotta send it from round 1.
Yeah,
and
it is bang on.
Yeah.
So like, I'll just say my introduction to CrossFit is very much similar. It just wasn't in an army gym. I had a bit of a background in just like, you know, your bro sesh training and sports before, but in terms of like my introduction to CrossFit, it was the same. Watched a YouTube video, thought if I do that, I'll look like that and be able to do that. And I had the same attitude. It was just like, I would do a workout, you'd see some scores, and then you would see Chris Spieler do this workout, and it was a 20-minute AMRAP, and it'd be like, well, Chris Spieler doesn't stop, like he doesn't rest, so and he always goes unbroken. So, well, that's all I need to do then. I'm going to go into the gym the next day, do this 20-minute AMRAP, and literally from the word go, like go as fast as I can unbroken, and just keep doing that for 20 minutes. But then reality hits about 2 minutes in, and you realise that it's not possible.
A bit how I started as well. So mate showed me on YouTube, like the bodybuilding gym at uni. Let's do Fran. Got my weightlifters on, you know, like they've just got from Strength Shop. Made out of chalk is the heel, not chalk, cork. It looks like it's made out of cork. Right, I've got to do these thrusters unbroken. So 21 unbroken. Well, we'll rest. But I had to rest about 3 minutes before I started even doing a pull-up. But you just think, oh, it's got to be done unbroken. Like, it's funny.
It's funny, so it's written. It's 21, and that's it. It's a set of 21.
Yeah, you feel like out to rest.
It's not a set of 8, and then a set of 7, and then a set of. Do you know what I mean? It's not. It's a set of 21, and that's the mindset you get when you're in. I think that's like, obviously, it's number one mistake, isn't it? Everyone says it. It's the first thing you hear. Whatever you do, don't go thinking for the first round. There's always one. See in a bit.
So it's always pretty much everyone. Isn't it? Everyone that's new getting into it.
Yeah.
So that's lesson number 1. You don't have to go unbroken.
Yeah. You don't have to start as fast as possible, like, because when you get into CrossFit, you look at 20 minutes and you think it's not long that. Because you used to maybe go and exercise for like an hour or an hour and a half at a time. So you see 20-minute workouts, you think this is a short workout, I'm going to start as fast as possible. But you soon start to realise that 20 minutes, you know, of 2 or 3 exercises is quite a long time to be spending on a few exercises. So yeah, I think that's the first thing that most people learn. I think when they get into CrossFit, that there needs to be some form of pacing element in order to actually like
survive,
enjoy doing it, like even get something out of it and not break down and be super sore and, you know, and not be able to come back to the gym for the next few days.
Yeah.
How, Carl, would you say 1 or 2 weeks in?
Yeah.
What did you realise? Like, what did you start realising that you needed to do, or did you realise anything in order to like actually get better? Like, what needed to change from your initial like attitude?
The thing is, nothing. Not that soon. It literally took me months to realise that this is not the right way to do it. And then I don't know where it came. Do you know what? I think it came. My strength training more got involved when I became injured, because lashing myself doing pull-ups, thinking I could do it. It's the one thing I could probably do, and I'm thinking I'm just getting this straight away. You know, butterfly pull-ups. Before I knew it, I was like, I'm king of pull-ups here. And then a couple of I tore my rotator. So I tore my rotator cuff, and that's when I started to really. I think I come away from CrossFit then. I think I started doing like bodybuilding training, and when I ended up going back to CrossFit after like 6 months of bodybuilding, I just felt way stronger. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's at that point I learned about the strength training and the accessory and why that's so important. And then ever since that injury, I've kind of focused on that more than that conditioning, the importance of it. But then that's at the same time, my fear from conditioning then grew more and more because of this one Remesendit thing, this injury. That's what happens when you do that. And then I thought, I won't do so much of that actually. And then I'll start weightlifting, and then that's why now I'm at a stage later down the line where I still do have a bit of fear of conditioning. And if it's weightlifting, it's 1 minute max, I'm like, yeah, right, go on then. And if when it's, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and mixing the
so
two.
it's like it took me to the point of getting injured to like do a bit more research on what I really need to be doing. And I think that needs to be communicated early. If anything, I think if you're walking into a gym for the first time and you're going to go through your first workout, whatever it is, I think that person possibly even needs to be monitored, like, do this, and told what to do. So like, just to monitor out the fatigue, because that fatigue it'll cause you to, I think it's that bad, it can be, personally for me, it would to stop doing conditioning completely, because you know how bad it is and you think that's the way it has to be done. And I feel like that if that's communicated well from the start, it will probably be a different story.
Yeah, just connect the two. Would you say that you're like, you naturally just had like a bit of you wanted the competition like side of it, like you saw like the competition side of it and naturally like wanted to work towards that? Because I think a lot of people are getting into CrossFit and they just want to be.
Do you know what? Well, from a time I did go through a stage, I think everyone goes through a stage of that proper, when you get involved in it, you get proper obsessed on your foot. You get like infatuated for a short period of time and you're hammering it and you think you're going to games and you go, do you know what I mean? You have 6 months of that, and I definitely did have that. And when I left the army, I said I'd come and went to be a CrossFit coach. I think that would be, it was then in that 6 months. But I never seen it as, I never thought I would be competitive from the start, or would compete, and it's still even now, like I wouldn't, do you know what I mean, aim for the ceilings really, because I think you find out what it takes to do that. It's really just a bit more.
What about you?
In terms of what?
In terms of like, when you started, did you have in your mind that you were like, oh, well, I'm going to compete here?
Yeah, I think what took over quite early for me was, so I got into it in 2010 or 11, and the only real thing there was CrossFit.com, and people, they would release a workout results would be in the comment section. So like straight away for me it was do the workout, then you'd actually have to go all the way back home, get up the computer and have a look, because you didn't have phones. You didn't really have phones then with internet, or good internet anyway. So it would then be like go through all the comment section, and then I'd be like, right, well this is my score, and then looking at all these other scores. And the cool thing was like Jason Philippe's scores would be in there, because he would be putting his scores, and they'd be like, Jason from California, this score RX, like age 25 or something. I mean, so like you seeing all these people, you start to like learn names and learn people's names, like who people were and where they're from. So straight away I was always like on that vibe to do the main side workout and like compare it. And as soon as I started realising that, I'm beating 90% of these scores that are on here, then it was kind of like a bit more of a push as to like, oh well, you must be, quite good at this. Like, and then straight away I was just into always trying to be competitive with on the CrossFit side of it. And to be honest, what I really didn't enjoy about training before finding CrossFit was training to look good. Like I was just never really that bothered about looking that good. It was always really training to either make me be fitter or stronger at football. I was never really overly obsessed with like getting a six pack or being massive. So like straight away, like that performance element of it, of comparing the competition, was just what brought me in straight away. Yeah. It was similar.
So for me, I obviously trained from 16 till 21 to get massive really. But I feel like I didn't do it. I wasn't that bothered about looking good. I didn't like do it to look good at the time, but I just didn't know any other way of training.
That's why.
Like there's one way out. That was it.
Like I sailed and then played rugby for a bit, and like I wasn't really aware of any, you know, anything out there that would help me like get better at them really.
Yeah.
And then obviously the whole YouTube thing, like we said before, like my mate Rob showed me, and I was like, I can do that.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, you start dabbling in it, don't you? And yeah, that's it. Like you're like, oh, like I'm just going to try and learn all these new movements, and it's a bit more interesting than just being like doing it to look good. Because I've always had that competitive side with rugby and, you know, and everything else. But training's always been really consistent. Like it's always been there, and then it was nice to be able to be like, I really enjoy training, and now I can have this competitive element in there as well.
I think what's interesting there is that you got Carl, who's just said he's not overly like too bothered about being a competitor, because you kind of, you know, you can see what it takes to get there, but you still enjoy training and want to push yourself to get to the point where you know.
I do. I never used to like. Do you know when I just don't like the thought of like not being able to do something. I always hated that. Like I remember I couldn't do double unders for proper ages.
Yeah.
And like, do you know things like that? Do you know you just can't do something? It's like when I've been started doing my videos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like I watch other people and think, why can't I do that type of thing? And I'm always like, it'll just annoy me if I can't do it. I'm not bothered if I want to be the best at it. Some description, there's always going to be someone better than me at CrossFit, because I've not put all my eggs in that basket. You know what I mean? Like there's other stuff going on, and I'm 30. I'm not 21 and all that sort of stuff. But like, it's just that element of being able to do everything. Do you know what I mean? Being able to understand, whether it's like 100 meters or 50 yards or whatever it is. It's like, as long as I can do it to a place where I can then progress it. It was more than not being able to do it at all that would wind me up. If something come up, I can't do it.
I think like we'll get people watching this, and then they'll straight away they'll be like, I'm in Carl's side. Like I want to be, you know, I'd like to do some competitions, but I'm more in it about like personal development, to be able to learn these new skills, and as to like to be able to take myself from A to B and like get better at something, and anything that kind of like gets thrown at me, I see it as a bit of a challenge and get better at it. Whereas I think, I don't know if you were like this as well, Jack, but my mindset was kind of like, that's what I need to do at competition. That's how many reps, that's how fast you need to do it, that's the way that you need to do it at. To be able to, because I knew that I wanted to get to like be in competitions and be winning competitions. So I think people will, in them early stages of CrossFit, like you highlighted that within the first like 6 months of doing CrossFit, that was kind of like what you wanted to do. And within my first 6 months of CrossFit, I'd highlight that I wanted to get as high as I can in competitions. I think people will realise that like, right, why are they doing CrossFit, and are they wanting to take it to that step of going like super competitive, or do they just enjoy doing CrossFit to develop and like personal development? And I think we actually have that full range of people. Well, Carl's on the program, we have that full range of people on JST, where we have the people there that they do it because they want some structure and they want some good guidance to be able to personally develop, learn new skills, get stronger, be fitter, and do the odd competition as a fun thing in the weekend. But then they have the other end of the spectrum where, you know, the guys that are outside here training now, it's their career, it's their life, it's what they want to achieve and take to the highest physical level possible. And I think people need to identify early on like where they're going to be. Otherwise, if they don't identify, they start trying to be over here, but they're trying to be there because they think that's where they need to go, but it's not what they want.
Really want to do.
It's the commitment aspect. For me, because it's so young and that, there's like, do you know, like, you want to play football, you can play in League One and you can get paid enough to have it as a career, but you're only a League One player, but you're probably on like $4,000 a month or whatever it is, so you're like, this is alright, this month $4,000 a week, League One. Oh, well, do you know what I mean? I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying? Well, League Two then might be $4,000 a month. So like conference might be on $4,000, do you know what I mean though?
Yeah.
Like that, there's that ladder there, whereas what I find with CrossFit is, if you don't decide early on, like you say, because of the commitment aspect that it actually takes to get there, you need to identify the fact whether you are over here or you're over there, because ultimately, you'll get to 29, you won't really have a job, but you won't be even competing CrossFit games to an extent where you're going to be making money out of it, but you've got to see it as like more of a career path, because the commitment aspect is ridiculous, isn't it? Like you're not running a full-time job doing 2 to 3 training sessions a day, recovering well, going being an accountant, coming back, getting a good sleep at night, and all that sort of stuff.
I think the catfish that is like, people have done it. People at some of the games this year gone, I forget the lady's name, full-time teacher, I think she's got kids, check the games. So like, and those stories are blown up because they are amazing stories, but they're pretty unachievable for them.
It's like how many people do CrossFit now?
There's probably a big background to sport.
I think that comes down to how stronger like the why is as well, how strong she actually wanted that, and whether you can match that. Do you know what I mean? Some people, it's like, it is hard to do at the end of the day. It's like, it's no joke, is it? No. If you're gonna, you have to really want to do it, to enjoy what these guys go through, and just for the sake of doing it all. Do you know what I mean? You're never gonna get there either way. So, like you said, her thing was absolutely so strong for some reason that she managed it. But I'd say on the most part, it's probably not gonna be, because it's going to take you an amount of years to get there anyway. It's like, can you endure that for that many years to achieve that goal? Like, it's a big thing.
Yeah, I think going back to like the next point that we wanted to get across is when you've gone into CrossFit, you start doing a CrossFit class, you've realised that you want to take this. You either want to like get a lot better at it and take it more seriously than someone who just likes to go to the class, be coached and do the class. Like, you want to take that step up. Like, I think that's usually what people, they either decide they want to take that step up or they're happy in the CrossFit class. And obviously the taking the step up is the step that a CrossFit athlete would need to go through. And it's at that point when they take a step up, like, what is that step? Like, what are the differences that they need to make day to day in their life and in their training for to actually make the step up? And I think if you take what we were saying then about the injuries that you got, I got injuries. I was ripping my hands probably every week for the first year of doing CrossFit, and just little niggles like here and there. I think the important thing that people have got to understand is that when they're taking that step, is that your approach to training now changes. You're not just turning up and doing CrossFit workouts every day. You're then trying to develop at the sport. So you then got to identify like the different demands within the sport, the weightlifting elements. Both Olympic lifts, for starters, are an absolute rabbit hole of technique that you need to go down and figure out. And it's not just a one-size-fits-all technique either. Like, you've got to figure out the best technique for you based off limb length and current strength or imbalances. And then it's the actual strength, squats, pulls, presses. And then we've got all these gymnastics exercises, and all of these exercises are probably everything that we've probably not been previously exposed to, unless you've had a background in like a similar sport before. So you've got a lot of skills that you don't have a huge amount of exposure to. No, I didn't when I started CrossFit in terms of the gymnastics and Olympic weightlifting, even squats and deadlifts didn't do that many of. And then suddenly they become like the foundation that you need to be like excelling at to be able to progress in CrossFit.
And a lot of people feel overwhelmed when they're like, literally, I need to get better at this, I need to get better at this, and then I need to get better at this, and it's like, that's when they literally, that's where some people's heads fall off and like, I'm either all out or they're just like muddled, they don't know.
I do feel like there's a big drop off at that point. And I think then some people, would you say that you do this as well? Like, some people, because they get overwhelmed and there's a drop off, like, some people just forget CrossFit altogether, like they'll just go away from it.
I'd say you almost went through that point, when you got injured and you were like, you kind of took a step back.
I figured, I did take a step back. I don't think I was going to fall. I always intended to come back when I did it, because like bodybuilding stuff, it was just like, I didn't find it. Yeah, it was alright, but it was just a means of training, do you know what I mean? I do like doing that sort of stuff, but the drop off for me. But I know what you mean with the programming thing, because you feel like you have to do every single movement every week, or that's it. When the reality is, if you just build the basic foundations, what I did, I went for a stage where, I don't know, I think I read it somewhere. I literally I put 5 things down that I was like really terrible at.
Yeah.
And then it was like double unders, thrusters, wall balls, probably still be there now. And like, do you know what, 5 things I thought, right, if I just look at them 5 things as my weaknesses, and like everything was a weakness at the time. If I just make sure I focus on these, then it'll be kind of sound.
I think it's good advice to take as well, though. Is I labelled them like all the Olympic lifts and the strength and all the gymnastics. But if you pick the 5 things, like you just said, thrusters, wall balls, and something else, thrusters and wall balls straight away, very simple.
Yeah.
So it's just like you can start like. If you start building an understanding of what it is that you're weak at, and like that are your weakest, we call it your lowest hanging fruits, and then just working through, like, just have a process of like working on them and building them up until you can reassess them, and maybe that exercise is no longer in your 5, or that movement pattern is no longer.
Do you know what was actually really good though that you did? It's like you wrote down those 5 things.
Yeah.
So if going back, when I started, I was like really good at everything that was pulling, because I'd done a lot of sailing, a lot of climbing, and then I'd obviously done strength training for like 5-6 years, so I was pretty strong.
Yeah.
And if I'd like had that picture at the start and been like, right, I know I'm good at all this pulling stuff because I've done loads of pulling like before, and I'm pretty strong anyway, but I've not really done any pushing ever, properly. Do you know what I mean? It'd be like, oh well, why don't you start doing more handstand push-ups and trying to just learn the basics of going, you know what I mean? It's just identifying. Yeah, exactly. So
I find people are quick to overcomplicate things as well. And I feel like a lot of bugbear is people write a program or whatever workout and they feel like it's going to be 8, 12, 16, 20. And I'm like, right, okay, well, why does it have to be in this format? Why can't it be? My max chest to bar pull-ups is like, you do it on the program sometimes, it's a percentage of it and all that sort of stuff. Why can't it be 4 chest to bar pull-ups, then like 50 or something, just to get a bit of something in? But people are like, oh my god, it's not 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, what am I going to do?
Yeah, 59.
That's what it's like.
57.
And you see people doing mad accessories like stuff that I wouldn't know how to implement, like box squats. Then you see people balancing on benches, like one hand on and one knee on, because it's stability and rowing. And I'm like, why don't you just do some dumbbell rows and stick to like basic foundation strength training and stop overcomplicating it?
I think what you briefly touched in there is probably the next point to take away, is that obviously people who get into CrossFit and you love doing CrossFit workouts and you want to progress, but then by progressing we were saying like, oh, you want to work on all these skills separately, and then it's like, oh, when do I do CrossFit workouts? The one thing that I enjoyed like doing in CrossFit, but it's then that it becomes the exercise selection that you use in your CrossFit workouts.
Yeah.
So like when you said like, well, maybe I know I can do 10 chest bar pull-ups.
Yeah.
So rather than trying, let's say 10 chest bar pull-ups as a max set.
Yeah.
Like if I do sets of 10 in a workout, then I'm probably going to be knackered into it. So maybe I can just do 3 every round.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like a round number of times. Just do 3 each time. And just making sure that when you're doing these exercises in workouts, that you're not pushing them to a level where these skills break down. To the point where they break down that much that you might get injured from doing pull-ups, or they break down and then you just start creating bad habits in technique, because that's where the skill and all that technique needs to be worked on separately in a non or a less fatigued state, and then just use exercises that can't probably, and even if they do break down, it's not much of an issue, like burpees, like crawling up off the floor. It's probably not going to hurt yourself too much, or rowing or on a bike, or something that's it's not going to be harmful to you when you are really fatigued. And I think that's the key thing then, is then you start identifying what exercises can you do no problem in a workout, what exercises you can maybe do in a workout but you need to be careful how much you do, and then what exercises can you definitely not do in a workout, and then you get this like little bit of a continuum of skill level of exercises, and that's what we kind of ask people when they join on the program, or like an individual with us, is that they create this this continuum of exercises, what they're really confident with, like strength exercises, like they're really happy with them. They could be, they'd be a top of the leaderboard if they came up, all the way down to like what's the least competent exercise they've got, and they get that continuum. So if you kept the exercises that they're least competent or the highest skill, trained them separately, kept all the exercises that you were good at, were strong, and you did them in workouts, and then you start trying to balance it out, like you said with the list of 5, that's probably going to be in the list of the 5 exercises that you need to do separately. And then you start identifying like your ability as an athlete, your strengths and weaknesses, and what you do and don't need to work on, and it becomes then less overwhelming because there's 5,000 exercises in CrossFit that you need to work on. I think that's the next important stage that people need to go through once they realise that the step needs to be taken. Is the awareness of what level they're at, what level they want to get to, and then kind of just being more aware of how to approach each exercise in the training.
I guess then that branches to, now we've kind of identified what it is, like how do we then go from the actual step from the class onto being...
As in what to decide and what to
write.
You can sit here and plug join JST Compete program, but ultimately when you find out what you're weaker on, you then need to be like, right, what's my resources to help me get better at what I'm weaker at. I'll watch some YouTube videos, that's how I learn. You two learn. Is there any coaches in my area that, if it's Olympic weightlifting, is there any coaches that can help me with that? Is there any gymnastic coaches? Is there just a CrossFit coach that can help in all areas? Is there someone I can reach out to online? And just like, what are your resources available in terms of what's close to you, finances, what can you do to take the responsibility to make that next step, and not just if you don't have the knowledge of how to do it, I wouldn't just try and think of the knowledge yourself. There's experts out there now. CrossFit's been around for 10 plus years. There are experts out there that can help. Just reach out to someone that can help you make that step without making the errors that probably I did, probably you did, because we were in CrossFit when those resources, those coaches weren't readily available that now.
I think for going from class to a program, I think it's a natural progression. It did feel like that for me, and I feel like I probably did it too soon, and I feel like loads of people do it too soon, whereas sometimes when I went into a CrossFit class and there were people better than me there, I think I took the program on more because I was away doing it on my own and I didn't have a class environment anyway because in the army. But when I would come back, and then I built an understanding of what everyone was capable in the class, thinking, do you know what I mean? You can identify the people who you think like one of my good friends, Ste. I thought Ste should have been on the programme because he was doing the classes, and I thought he got to a stage where he wasn't getting any better with the classes. He was building to a max every day, because that's what you tend to do in the classes, do you know what I mean? And he was I just didn't feel like he was getting any better, Ste, and I felt like he should have made the jump to compete, and the answer would have been up for him again. And I just feel like he's come away from CrossFit now, but he was level pegging for, I'd say, at least 12 months, and he was the same.
It comes down to whether Ste, why did Ste just enjoy going? Did he enjoy going to CrossFit? Did he enjoy lifting heavy quite frequently, and did he enjoy doing CrossFit workouts?
He loved it, but he also loved doing 4 renal trials a year, which leads me to think that he should have probably been doing the competition program.
So maybe he didn't identify, like we were saying, what position are you in, what are you wanting to do? Are you wanting to compete, or are you wanting to train for enjoyment? Maybe he didn't go through that process of identifying, so that then he did get to a level a few years down the road where he just does triathlons now, doesn't he? He's pretty good at that. Maybe. Yeah, he's that type of person though. He's come from tennis as well. It's I thought with the Ste being the type of sporting person that he is, he's identifying himself to be more of an athlete, competitive type of person. He did it in tennis, come to CrossFit, want to do all the renal trials. Now he's been trying, he's been signed up at half Ironman and all that sort of stuff. I mean, he's got it in him, so I'm surprised he never took that leap when he was in CrossFit. Maybe it was then that he was overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that he needed to get better at. And didn't take the initiative to write down the list and then go like, right, well, how do I get better at that?
Well, a great definition of like trying to achieve like high performance, and obviously high performance can vary from, you know, for you if you're trying to balance like work with like training, doing CrossFit, it could just be like you do the odd competition, like you say, you learn all the skills. That could be like the equivalent to Reggie's CrossFit Games as an example. There's levels, but just going back to the high performance thing is doing the best you can with what you've got in the moment that you're in. So doing the best you can is obviously identifying all them areas. In the moment that you're in now, it's like, right, this is what I need to do to take that step forward, and then the kind of with what you've got is the resources. So like, I'm gonna go to that program, or I'm gonna watch this YouTube video. So it's kind of encompasses all those elements.
I think with them, I still don't rule out the fact that in a certain amount of years you could be at a certain place, because even though it's just going to take you longer, but as long as you keep plugging away, I might not have the time now, but like in 5 years time, the accumulation of that time could be like 2 years full time, and might achieve in 5 years part time. Like it's still there. You can never, like for now, I've never thought I'd be able to do this and do that. Do you know what I mean? You literally, I think, looking at CrossFit, you go there and you think, I'm literally never going to be able to do a bar muscle up or whatever. You see it and it's like, wow. Do you know what I mean? It's such a daunting thing, and like the achievement when you get one and all that sort of stuff. So I feel like you can never say never, no matter what position you're in, like you were saying there. If you stick at it, down the line, you might be 29, they might be 23, but they've had 5 years solid training and you've had 10 years part-time training. Do you know what I mean?
But you're doing the best that you can with definitely. What you've got. You know, in the time that you're in.
So let's say, so if we're going to go through the journey of a CrossFit athlete, let's follow it all the way through. So we've gone from found YouTube on Netflix, watched it, got inspired by it, thought, I'm doing that. Gone to a CrossFit gym, joined in, done classes for X amount of time, 6 months, maybe a year, and then they've decided that they want to take it on to the next level. They've identified what they need to get weaker at, and they've maybe found a program, or they found a program that they want to follow to get better at it. So they're on a program, and they're doing CrossFit. They're trying a competitive program. Matt Noah Olsen, Bjorgvin, Tia Claire Toomey is also on a program training CrossFit and working on the weaknesses. Like it looks very similar to what this person who's 1 year into CrossFit is doing, and what the best in the world are doing. So I think identifying maybe the path that needs to happen, the progressive path that needs to happen. So to get to that level needs to be identified.
So the next thing, someone's joined the program, basics. So what world-class basics, PH nutrition. So that's like sleep, nutrition, hydration, like all those key things that are going to help you to recover from training. Those need to be down, because otherwise you might be training, you might be doing double sessions 5 days a week, but if you're not recovering enough, you're obviously wasting your time because you're not making the gains that you could otherwise be making with doing less training.
I think that is what people will see there. They'll see Tia does probably 6 hours a day of training, and I'm currently doing like 1. Right, okay, so I need to do 6 hours a day of training. So they try and do 6 hours in 1 day, and then that's them written off. And it is that I'll try and do 2 hours a day, and even from going from 1 hour to 2 hours, you've still doubled the amount of training time you're doing in a week. So it's like you just said, then it's like, well, what can I do that's going to then help me do an hour and a half training a day? If I'm on an hour now to get to an hour and a half training a day, what can I do to be able to recover, to still be able to train with good intensity, not be beaten up, not be getting injured, to be able to hit that training session with no problem. And I think that's the first step, isn't it?
Yeah.
The food,
the sleep.
The sleep, hydration, the stress levels in that you can maybe get from other areas of your life.
Managing balance.
Yeah. that are going to affect potentially performance in training. I think those are the main key areas that also sometimes get overlooked. And the thing is, you can overlook them and still get quite good at CrossFit, but you're not setting yourself up to be able to get to the best level that you can get at if you don't, get these basics under control first. I made a post, must have been a few months ago now, about my progression from 2010 through 2015 of like year on year, like training, like the training volume that I was doing. And it was like it didn't go from what I was doing in 2010 to what I was doing in 2015 like in 1 year. It took 5 years of progressing off the back of 15 years of playing like sports and the conditioning and exposure that I had there to be able to get to be able to continue to like be adding in this training volume. And I think that's an area that people need to be aware of, is don't jump to what the pros are doing. You need to build and progress and develop, and your body needs to be able to survive in that. In what you're giving it in training, it's not just something that's going to happen like in a year's time. We always, and we've said it a few times now on podcasts, the whole like you said just before, like the football league analogy of like, right, well, you're in the conference, you're not, some people might do, but you're not going to get signed by a Premier League team. Like, if you're not good enough for Premier League, like you're not going to go into a Premier League team. You've got to then improve your skills, like live like a League 2 player in order to get to League 2, get the promotion, or get be signed by a League 2 player, and kind of like make that progressive jump, up the standards. I think that's an easy analogy to understand, but because in CrossFit it's just so like, I can enter the open and be on the same leaderboard as Tia and everyone else. Like, when the open comes around, it makes things makes the lines a little bit more blurred.
And I think, to be fair, what would be quite good is if you had like, there is levels of competition. It could be year 1 going to do Rainhill trials, year 2 and 3 going to do battle for middle ground, year 4, 5 might do like a German throwdown that's not like a regionals, but it's like a high level comp, and then level 5 it's like regionals, and then semi-finals. And again, it's just having that perspective and being able to be like, right, I've got this in mind, I've got this rough plan, rough guideline, and it might change. It might be you end up getting semi-finals a year earlier than what you thought you would, which is fine. Like,
that's a good way to see it. A lot of people just think, my goal is to go to the games. I think it might be, but you need to like I said, like reverse engineering the protocol. I think people don't actually. I think it's still very blurry between the fact that how what it actually does take to get there. I think people are quick to get that 6 months progression. You make quite a lot of progress at the start of anything, because the adaptations there, and you're just like, that's it. 3-year plan to go to the games.
When the games came around, I put a story out like when the games finished, because I was interested like how many people were inspired by the games, and then like how many people had just then made that decision, like, I'm going to go to the games. Like, my sole purpose now is to qualify for the games or aim for semi-finals. And there was loads, 150, 200 people said that I'm training for semi-finals. And I messaged some of them back, and I'm just like, so like, what's your plan then? Like, what are you doing? And people like, I'm not going to compete for the next, like I've done one competition, but I'm not going to compete for the next like 2 years. I've got a 3-year plan to get there. I'm not going to compete in those 2 years, and then like 3rd year I'm going to try and get to semi-finals. But they've not then gone through that, like the tiered process of work, like going to battle for middle ground, battle for middle ground, like taking the experience and learning the skill of competing from there, and working the way up to get to semi-final. They're literally just sat in their own gym, not getting exposed to any kind of competition exposure, and hoping that they'll get there and succeed.
because so say they do manage to qualify for semi-finals, but obviously the process before that has all been in your own gym.
Yeah.
You get to semi-finals and you just completely shit your pants because you've not been on a competition floor in 2-3 years, and then you just weigh out your depth. So like you say, it's part of the process, isn't it? Doing the competitions and everything else along the way.
Yeah.
Do you think there's an element of people competing too much as well though? Like, do you think they should just be that, we'll do battle for middle ground on year 2, battle for middle ground on year 3, whatever it is? Do you think it should be that sole goal for that competition per the year, or do you think they should have like a bit of a season, maybe do 2 of the battle for middle grounds and then go back into an off season, or what do you think the approach should be?
I think you should always put yourself through like a season per year, and the season will last like a few months. So like when I was competing, there'd always be like end of January would be the first like competition, because you changed names like 4 times. But Battle of London Athlete Games, London Throwdown, like that competition was always end of Jan. Then a few weeks later was the Open. Then after the Open, a few weeks later it was regional. So that was like the competition period there. And then after regionals and made the games, it was go back into off season and dial in the areas that I found, made the list of 5 things, the areas that I found that I fell behind on, that I need to get better on to improve like how I perform the following season.
Yeah. I think a lot of people would tend to feel like there's too much of the people doing a competition in March and a competition in October, and then that in between bit is like a bit of no man's land, because it's like not really enough time to have an off season, but all good before we're back into competitive state and all that sort of stuff. Do you think people's timings of it are just off in terms of?
I think you're right there. I think there can be probably, you're better either having it in one block where you've got like the Open, your competition, or have a big enough gap between the 2 competitions that you can really work on what your weaknesses were after the, like at the Open or whatever it was. As long as it's like a good 6 months after, so like you say, you got time to do it, then
I think it ultimately comes down to, again, when someone's identifying like how far do they want to go, like they're doing this because they want to compete in comps like that for middle ground. Is that their CrossFit Games? Like, is that where they want to get to? Are they happy being at that level? If that's the case, compete every month at that level if you want to. If that's what brings you enjoyment, you're not writing yourself off from doing it. Then crack on. But if you're wanting to get to semi-finals in games level, and you've got improvements that you need to make, like depends on how much you need to improve, of how much time that you're maybe going to have to dial back from doing these other competitions, which might hinder your progress in the areas that you need to develop in.
I feel people on them long-term goals, so I feel like they are competing a lot and they're like, oh, I'm going to go games, but we're doing all these competitions. I feel like, personally for me, having been injured, I feel like that exposure to risk as well of getting that injury, competing all the time, like hanging out, trying to do ring muscles or whatever, is something so high skill, and obviously your competence isn't quite there yet. I feel like that risk is not worth the. Do you know what I mean? The risk reward just doesn't make sense in terms of. Do you know what I mean? The direction you want to go. If you're exposing yourself to that all the time, then it's like, and you're in competition mode as well. So it's not like taking a gym, sit back. You know what I mean? There's no time for that. I feel like it only takes fall off some rings or something. And
I think the thing with CrossFit getting more popular, CrossFit competitions getting more popular over the years, is that you can go and compete every other week.
Yeah.
Now they're opening up again. There's a lot of competitions coming about. We saw a very good example of it in the sanctional season, where there was literally a sanctioned event nearly every month, a few every month, and you could literally enter any of them. Athletes were just like, I'm going to do that one, and then they do that, and I want to do that one, I want to do that one, I want to do that one, I want to travel the world, I want to do them all. And some of them athletes, like, that's what they wanted to achieve in their career, like, fantastic, but it also blurred the line. Some athletes were just like, well, I've got no clue like what to do with the season now, because like, there's not like a clear structure. I think it was an easy decision for me to make when I was like training, competing and growing up, because there's only 2 options. You train at the end of January, you compete at the end of January, and then you do the Open, and then it's regionals, and there was nothing else that was even there to be able to compete in. So naturally I had an off season, I had an in season, and then just as like CrossFit grows, then the marketing of these competitions make it really exciting to, you know, go and compete at them. There's prize money here, there and everywhere now, so it does just all the way come back to what we had outlined as one of the most important things, and as you start your CrossFit journey, is like, where do you want to go and what do you want to achieve? Like, do you want to do it because you want to personally develop, to go about competing? Do you want to compete in as many different competitions like around the country or maybe in like Europe, or do you want to get to the top of like competitions? And I think if you identify that early on, these decisions that you need to make through your CrossFit career are easier to make because it's been identified. Like the path, the decision's easy because the paths, you've already written out the path, and if it takes you off the path, then it's not the decision you make. It stays on the path, and it's the decision you make.
Yeah,
I think ultimately that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. You just keep an eye on the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to do. Like, it's easy to get stuck in this phase of training, and it's like, where does this phase of training sit in, you know, the grand picture of things?
Yeah, I think the community sort of thing as well, when someone says, do you want to do a post comp next week? Or do you want to do a team comp in a couple of weeks? And you're thinking, yeah, I do, actually. And you're saying yeah to everything before you know it, your path's gone off, you're all skewed like this because you're doing a team comp over here, you're doing a post comp over there, you think I'll do rail over there, and just do this thing over there. Do you want to do this? It's only a little one at a box or something like that. Before you know it, you've tore your arm off and you've done throw some rings. So,
but high performance doesn't happen in straight lines either. It's going to go up, down, back, you know.
Back, forward, round.
Nothing is level linear.
So before we started recording, I put a little story out for some questions. Let's see what are. Oh gosh, this first one is an actual full podcast. Watched an interesting video on PEDs, performance enhancing drugs in CrossFit. How common do you feel it is? Can we answer that in a couple of minutes? I think we can.
Give us a one-liner.
Yeah, I think it's common in CrossFit. It's common in any sport. I think personally, I think it's more common in these competitions that have prize money, but the competition's also not big enough to be able to test, and then athletes know it, where they can go and win a grand or so a weekend, qualify for it and do the competition, and they're not getting tested because it costs quite a bit of money for an athlete to get tested. And there's a lot of them competitions that are popping up, and I feel like that's where it's a little bit more common. But I also do feel like there's that level of athlete will always just like stay at that level. If that's your mind frame that you need to take performance enhancing drugs, then you've got the wrong mind frame to get to the top of the sport. And like, people have been caught at the top of sport taking performance enhancing drugs, but I think it's a certain type of athlete and a certain mindset that people that take performance enhancing drugs, like, I think they're limited by the mindset that they need to take them to achieve what they need to achieve, where I think that's just not the mindset that you find that these people have got to the top have in their approach to training.
Yeah. I feel like that's quite a good answer.
Yeah, I feel like it's a good answer to it.
Taking that one?
Yeah, I feel like you've covered it there. I can't.
It's always an awkward one to do test, well, that's my take. How would training in the last week before a competition look if competing on Saturday before an example? So it's Monday today.
Monday.
How would training look competing on the weekend, 5 days away?
5 days away, volume would be really quite low. If there should be probably a good amount of intensity on the Monday before if we're competing on the Saturday, and then through the week you just kind of try and touch on as many elements as you can, just so you kind of practicing a little bit of the skill, just, you know, keeping it kind of drilled in, keeping it, you know.
I think the most important thing to be aware of is fatigue, isn't it?
Yeah.
Last week, like, you don't want to be going into the competition with an overwhelming amount of fatigue. You also don't want to be super fresh so that your body's kind of like switched off to the demands of the weekend. So it's a fine line of kind of like giving your body enough to keep things ticking over, and to be able to perform at the highest, but not too much that you actually like tired when you get to the competition. So rest periods are a big thing. Generally, rest periods will go up in the week before competition, so that you've got intervals or like sets of something to do. You're always fully recovering in between each set, keeping high quality, keeping high intensity, and you're also feeling good about change. You're just not smashing yourself to pieces. I think also the other thing is practicing, like if something's been released usually a week before, practicing that, and just putting some time into coming up with some strategy.
Yeah, a couple of things I got did with Kyle on the lead up to Euros Champ was that in the weeks before I said, right, we know pretty much there's going to be a max lift coming up, so I just want you to write your warm up down of, you know, exactly what you're going to do on the day, and just time it as well and just see how long it takes you. So then obviously when the schedule for the workouts is released, you're like, right, at 10 o'clock I need to start, you know, moving around and warming up. And same, if any workouts come up, practice it with a warm up beforehand and write your warm up and write your thoughts on the workout after, and then obviously you can come up with a better game plan for it as well.
Cool. Ed's asked a question, but I feel like this is potentially a follow-up topic for another podcast. Where do you see CrossFit go in the next 5 to 10 years? I feel like that's probably going a bit more detail that. So the last question is a good controversial one to finish with. Who is a better athlete, Jack or Ste?
Go on, Carl.
Well, we can't answer.
I don't know.
I think, do you know what I think is good is like we're literally like opposite athletes. Pretty much in terms of what our strengths are. Your strengths are pulling, my strengths are pushing. My weaknesses are pulling, your weaknesses are pushing.
How you think?
How we think is what we highlighted in the last podcast, but that then also like identifies why you're good at certain types of workouts, and why I'm dislike certain type of workouts. Don't know, should we do a workout now and decide?
Let's do it.
Handstand push-ups, strict handstand push-ups, and so on. Back squats.
So there's not a conclusive answer there, is there? But we'll
tell you what.
We'll put it out there.
You pick one. You pick
Tell you what I'll
one.
do.
You pick one.
I'll rub
Jack
that
picks
in.
one, and then I'll pick one that goes in the middle.
What do you mean?
Well, so
You
we do
pick
3
a
workouts.
movement. You pick a movement.
Alright,
Jack
so
will pick a
workout.
movement, and then I'll just throw one in the middle.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to share this question, and then we're going to make a poll, and I'm going to let everyone decide.
There we go.
I'm going to take a picture. Got my glasses on. Cool.
Yeah.
All done.
Let's wrap this bitch up.